Hey, hey, hey!
Ho, ho, ho!
What do you say?
What do you know?
It's time now for
Creepy Cheapies
with your host, the old loser.
Yeah, get out of here, you guys. Come on. Didn't need your introduction. Hello, welcome once again, ladies and vegetables, boys and sprouts, to Creepy Cheapies here in the Library of Horror Hotel, where it's time to once again take a little time out to appreciate and discuss and examine the fine art of Halloween monster masks. A good one today. And well, first, do keep listening. Please do pay attention. But if you need to clip your toenails or something like that, you can go ahead and be doing that in the next couple of minutes, okay? Because I'd like to back up first, but I can't very much because there's a window right here, so I can't. So instead, I will just discuss the past briefly. Now, those humans who grew up in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s were familiar with certain monster masks that became kind of icons of Halloween in America, right? Famous monsters and designs and creatures who showed up in the back pages of comic books and monster magazines that kids could order. And well, Don Post, of course, was pretty much the king of that stuff, but those masks were pretty pricey. They were like $30 or $40, which was like $68 million to a kid in those past decades. But another company called Topstone Rubber Novelties, I think, originally, and then later Topstone Industries, which is what I always knew it as. Anyway, Topstone was making masks for many, many years. And every Halloween, in addition to those little vacuum form flat plastic face masks with the rubber band that breaks across the back, in addition to those, the stores would be full of Topstone masks. And this was the days before a Walmart or Target, or as people like to call it, Le Boutique Target. This was before all that. The stores back then, they called them dime stores. And they still use that term sometimes today, like dime store psychology, you hear people say. And you just know there are generations of humans right now reading that and going, dime store? They used to have stores that only sold dimes? Why? And they're confused by things like that, and you can't blame them. But what was I talking about? Oh, yes, the masks. Every year these stores like Kmart and its nephew Kresge's, and there was Murphy's and Newberry's and Ben Franklin's and Conley's and lots of stores like that. Woolworth's was a classic. I loved Woolworth's. And its dad, Woolco. Lots and lots of department stores every year would have like a big basket, like a wire basket, like a big bin of masks. And they would have these rubber masks by Topstone. And all year long, the kids had seen the masks in the form of illustrations in catalogs and, like I said, in the back pages of comic books and monster magazines and movie magazines. They were always shown as drawings by a super talented artist named Keith Ward. And he designed this vast series of very influential and imaginative and scary yet funny masks for Topstone over years and years. And the problem was the quality was so poor of the finished masks that they didn't look much like those wonderful drawings. And I can remember going into stores to look at the masks and pulling them out of the bins, the Topstone masks, and they were such flattened out, chewed bubble gum looking. They look like something you pull off the bottom of your shoe and you're like, oh, what did I step on? What even is this? And I could only tell what they were, even though I'd seen the drawings lots of times. I could only tell what they were by the color sometimes. First you'd be like, well, this is white. I guess it could be a skull or a vampire or a ghost. Maybe it's a snowman. Or if it was green, you'd think, well, it could be witch or Frankenstein. But you put your fingers in there and try to stretch it out into shape because it was all decompressed and and compressed and crushed and flattened and like that, and you'd have to try to stretch them out. And the paint was thrown on there apparently from across the room or by somebody who was blindfolded. They never looked very good. Now, to be fair, Don Post masks were expensive, whereas the Topstone masks sold for $1 or $2 a piece. So you'd have to be crazy to think you were going to get something Hollywood movie quality for that kind of price. They were just mass-produced novelties. They weren't really meant to be big collector items, but they became collectible anyway, in spite of themselves, because generation after generation of humans in America grew up looking at those illustrations and thinking, wow, those are cool masks. And there were tons of them. There were Frankenstein-type monsters, and there were vampires, and werewolves, and just random ugly people, lots of witches and skulls and devils, and even some funny masks and some human-looking masks. There were clowns and hobos and a pretty girl and one that was like a handsome man, and they were just all kinds of characters, but the monsters were the ones that stuck. And one of my favorites back in the day was the Keith Ward legendary Topstone Mummy, which was simply called Mummy. Say something to the folks at home, Mummy. I'm the mummy. Yeah, he's the mummy. And you can see the tag right on here. Now the thing is, this is the way the drawing looked. I don't know if you can see that. That's that lovely illustration that was used in all those old magazines and comic books and such, and you thought you were going to get something that looked as cool as that, but the actual mummy masks were all deflated and crummy mummies, and you couldn't see the details, and they were barely recognizable, and you were inevitably disappointed when you saw them, or at least I was. And at the time, years and years, I always thought, man, it'd be cool to have that mummy done well, like produced rightly, produced the way it deserves, and see how good it could look if it was cast thinner, because those masks were super thin latex and they were all flubbery and rubbery and you couldn't get them to hold their shape. But you'd look at the drawing and think, wow, it'd be cool to see those masks done right. It'd be cool to see them, you know, nicely painted and cast up a little thicker and a little sturdier and have a nice version of them. And many, many years later, kudos to Trick or Treat Studios for finally stepping up to the plate. Plate? Yeah, because there's nothing that works with Egyptian mummies like baseball analogies, am I right? Yeah. Stepping up to the pyramid, I guess, and coming out with a line of masks that show us what the great Topstone classics might have looked like and could have looked like, and what kids wanted back then. Now, I don't know how this is going to go over today, because kids today aren't the sort of people who grew up on those same drawings turning up every year at Halloween, so maybe they don't think that this is anything special. But if you're an old geezer, you remember drawings of this mummy, and you remember, like I do, thinking, gee, I'd like to have one, but they're such low quality, they're such junky little things. Too bad they don't make a nice one. Well, in 2024, Trick or Treat finally started making nice ones. And the reason it's not a big full head and all that is because this is all there was originally. And this has been added. There's an elastic strap on there. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? There's a black elastic strap to help hold it on. I don't remember them even having those. I think they just kind of, you know, flopped around and fell off your face back in the day. But this is what I always wanted. This is what I always wanted to see, and what I wanted those Topstone masks to look like, and they never did. And this Keith Ward mummy is such a spectacularly good design, I think, because he looks exactly like a mummy. You know, there's no mistaking him for any other kind of monster but a mummy. Now, as far as what you'd wear with this, because this is wearable, if you're going to wear this for Halloween, obviously you're going to have a mummy suit. And I've looked around in recent years, there haven't been that many decent ones available in the world of mass-produced costuming, so you might have to hire somebody to make one or make your own. The ones you can get easily and readily these days are not very well wrought, and they're kind of rush jobs. They're too white, they're like chalk white. And you notice I didn't say Snow White because I didn't want anybody thinking, why would you dress the mummy up like Snow White? No, chalk white. They're too white, and you need to add some color, some tan and some brown, and which you could do by dyeing them. Some people dye the fabric in coffee or tea, scrunch it up and dye it, and then you get that nice moldy, ancient-looking color. Get a little more brown in it. But they've done such a wonderful job here. Many of the mummy masks were made from molds that were sort of overused, and the detail wasn't too good. But this version, this resurrection, if you will, from Trick or Treat, shows all the detail that was originally intended, which you, as kids, never got to see in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, because the molds were cheap and thin and worn out, and everything was just kind of all blended together. This finally is painted with precision and care and shows you exactly how cool he could look. As far as a movie mummy, he doesn't really look like a mummy from any particular movie. Do you? No. He's not Karis or Imhotep or Sephiroth or anybody like that. He's just a mummy. And I love that nice chilly bloodless green color. It looks like a dead guy, and it also looks retro Halloween. So this whole thing, even this kind of turquoise, or what would you call that, aquamarine kind of color in the shading, that's exactly how they were done back in the day, only they weren't done anywhere near this well. And here's the good news, you can land one of these for about 30 bucks. What? Oh yeah, you gotta have one. Or at least I do, because he's like a childhood memory. And again, I always wanted one of these, but it didn't exist in this nice form. And Trick or Treat is finally making some good-looking versions of these old monsters. And the good news also is that there are others in the series that they're doing, and I'd like to see them do tons more, but they're already doing a few others, which I'm sure we'll discuss at some point in the future, because the future is where you'll spend the rest of your life, you know. It's true. And that's about all we have to say for today. Say good night, Mummy. I'm the mummy. No, I said good night, Mummy. I'm the mummy. No, never mind. It's a little slow. I guess he looks a little bit like the mummy from Assignment Terror.